Si Domas mi Caballo, Daré mi Hija, Dijo Lgranjero a un Joven Pobre. Emotional, long story, plain paragraphs. The storm had just passed, but the air still trembled with the echo of thunder when Elias, a thin, poor young man of 19, walked up the muddy path leading to Don Ramiro's ranch. His clothes were worn, his boots carried the dust of miles walked, and yet his eyes burned with something the world could not wash away: hope. He needed work, he needed a chance, and he needed to prove, to himself more than anyone, that he was not defined by the poverty he was born into. The village knew him as the quiet boy whose father had died early and whose mother worked herself to near exhaustion. But Elias carried a dream heavier than hunger: to lift his family out of that cycle, to carve a life that held dignity, purpose, and a future. Don Ramiro was known for many things: wealth, stubbornness, and a legendary horse that no one had been able to tame. A black stallion named Tormento, a beast so fierce that even the most experienced horseman refused to approach him. Rumor said the animal had thrown every rider who dared try, and some still carried the scars. As Elias approached the corral, Don Ramiro watched him from under the brim of his wide hat. The old man was built like an oak tree, rigid and unmoving. His face bore the lines of a lifetime spent under sun and hardship. "What brings you here, muchacho?" Don Ramiro asked. "I'm looking for work," Elias said, trying to keep the tremor out of his voice. "Any kind. I'll do whatever you need." The farmer studied him for a long moment, his eyes narrowing. Then, unexpectedly, he said words that would echo across the ranch for years. "Si Domas mi Caballo, Daré mi Hija." Elias froze, stunned. But Don Ramiro lifted a hand before he could respond. "No entiendes mal, muchacho. Mi hija no es un premio. No es un objeto. Lo que quiero decir es que, si eres capaz de domar a ese demonio de cuatro patas, te habrás ganado mi respeto. Mi bendición. Mi confianza. Y entonces, si ella también lo quiere, podrás cortejarla." Elias knew of Lucia, Don Ramiro's daughter, a kind, intelligent girl with eyes as warm as the summer fields. They had spoken only twice, but each time her gentle smile had stayed with him for days. To earn the right to even stand beside her would be an honor beyond measure. So he nodded. "Acepto." Tormento snorted from inside the corral, as if laughing at the idea. The first attempt. Elias approached the stallion slowly, his hands steady but his heart racing. Tormento's eyes flashed dangerously. With one sudden, explosive movement, the horse kicked the fence so hard that dust shot into the air like smoke. Elias stumbled backward, breathless. Don Ramiro simply shook his head. "El caballo no acepta hombres débiles," he said. "I'm not weak," Elias whispered, though every part of him trembled. He tried again, and again, and again. Each attempt ended the same way, with the horse rearing, charging, or sending Elias face first into the dirt. Days passed. Weeks. The bruises on Elias's arms turned blue, then yellow, then brown. But he returned every morning before sunrise, determined to stand his ground. Lucia, unbeknownst to her father, sometimes watched from the window. She saw the young man get knocked down again and again, but she also saw him rise again each time. She admired the quiet fire inside him, the kind that didn't boast or demand attention. One evening, she brought him a glass of water. "You don't have to keep doing this," she said softly. "My father sets impossible challenges. He thinks worth is measured through pain." Elias shook his head. "I'm not doing this for him." Lucia's cheeks warmed with a blush she tried to hide. "Then for who?" "For the man I want to become," he answered. She didn't speak again, but her eyes said everything. The breakthrough. On the 32nd morning, Elias did something he had never done before. He didn't approach Tormento. Instead, he sat on the ground with his back to the horse. The stallion stomped and huffed behind him, confused. "I won't fight you," Elias whispered. "Not today." Minutes passed. Then, slowly, cautiously, the stallion stepped closer. He sniffed Elias's hair. Elias did not move. Tormento circled him twice, testing him, judging him. And then something miraculous happened. The stallion lowered his head and nudged Elias gently on the shoulder. A gesture of curiosity. A crack in the armor. The beginning of trust. When Elias finally turned, He looked into the animal's eyes, not with fear, but with understanding. "You're not angry," he said. "You're scared." The horse exhaled, long and heavy, as if relieved to finally be understood. That evening, Don Ramiro watched silently as Tormento allowed Elias to place a rope around his neck without resistance. The old man's eyes widened. His jaw tightened. The impossible was beginning to crumble. The final ride. 2 days later, the sun rose to a moment no one believed would ever happen, Elias climbing onto Tormento's back. The horse shook, then stood still. The ranch hands stopped working. Lucia held her breath. Don Ramiro gripped the fence with both hands. Then Tormento took a step. Another. Then a trot. Then, with a burst of wild energy, the stallion exploded into a full gallop, fast, furious, powerful. But Elias did not fall. He held on, not with chains, fear, or force, but with a bond built from patience, respect, and empathy. When Tormento finally came to a stop, the ranch exploded with cheers. Don Ramiro walked toward Elias, his stern expression softened by something rarely seen on his face, pride. "Muchacho," he said, voice thick with emotion. "Te ganaste mi respeto. Y mi bendición." Lucia stepped forward. Her smile was brighter than the morning sun. "And what about my opinion?" she teased. Elias laughed softly. "That's the only one that matters." Her cheeks flushed again, but she didn't look away. "Then, I think I want to know you better." And in that moment, Elias felt something he had chased his whole life settle into his chest, a future finally within reach. Epilogue, the lesson. Years later, people would tell the story of how a poor young man tamed a wild stallion and, in doing so, won not just a family, not just a place in the world, but himself. They would say it was destiny. Or luck. Or bravery. But Elias knew the truth. It wasn't strength that tamed Tormento. It wasn't force. It was patience, respect, understanding, and the courage to get up one more time after every failure. A lesson the horse had taught him better than any human ever could.